Okay, we're good. Okay. For those of you who have just joined us after closed session, welcome to this hybrid regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. Providing translation this evening is Monica Martinez Alvarado and Julie Young. I would like to allow the translators an opportunity to explain how to use the interpreting feature on Zoom.
Hola, buenas noches. Esta reunión la puede escuchar en español y va a tener interpretación en vivo, así que si gusta escuchar la interpretación en español, por favor hágale clic en el botón de interpretación en la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom cuando vea un icono de globo terráqueo. Si está escuchándonos a través de la aplicación de Zoom de su teléfono inteligente, por favor seleccione el idioma de su preferencia haciendo clic en More o en los 3 puntos en la esquina inferior derecha de la pantalla. Seleccione Language Interpretation o interpretación de idioma, luego elija Spanish y haga clic en Done. Si desea escuchar solo a los intérpretes, no a los oradores originales, asegúrese de hacer clic en Mute Original Audio o silenciar audio original. Todos deben elegir un idioma, por favor, para que escuche la interpretación. Everyone must select a language if you wish to hear the interpretation. And just make sure you're in the correct channel of the language of your preference. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie and Monica. Appreciate you being here this evening. I am Lisa Pelosi, Board President, and I would like to introduce my fellow trustees, Julio Guin, Jeannie Kerr, Maria Haug, and Laura Simon. I would also like to introduce our student representative to the board, Macy Alvarez. I would also like to introduce our district staff, Superintendent Dr. Mary Lou Wilson, Chief Academic Human Resources Officer, Mr. Christopher Heller, Chief Business Official, Mrs. Andrea Stubbs, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent, and Governing Board, Ms. Erica Madrigal, and our IT Systems Analyst, Mr. Derek Machado. Additional district and site administration are joining us in the audience this evening. We have the Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Mrs. Mary Allen, St. Helena Primary School Principal, Mrs. Rebecca Rocha, St. Helena Elementary School Principal, Ms. Tanya Pearson, RLS School Principal, Middle School Principal, Ms. Corinne Cox, St. Helena High School Principal, Mr. Benjamin Cinto. We are delighted that you are viewing in person, on Zoom, Television Channel 27, or our YouTube channel. A copy of this board meeting video will also be available on our website at www.sthelenaunified.org. In connection with items 4A and 4B, the board received information and provided staff with direction. We'll now go on to 5B, the flag salute. Please stand with me and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 6A is public comment on non-open session items. You'll see that on the screen as well, but I will take a moment to read about public comments at board meetings. At this time, members of the public are entitled to speak on matters not on the agenda. You are requested to state your name and address and keep your comments concise, brief, and limited to 3 minutes, please. Members of the public are entitled to speak on any item on the agenda, either immediately after the item is called by the board president or during a public hearing on the subject matter opened by the board president. Each person is entitled to speak on any agenda item only once at any meeting, and the right to speak at the appropriate time waives any further right to address the board on that item at this meeting. Participation in debate on any item before the board shall be limited to members of the board, although board members may ask members of the public for additional information. Be advised, testimony is not protected from damage claims for libel. Public charges or allegations may result in legal action being brought by those individuals. Please state your name and address and keep your comments concise, brief, and limited to 3 minutes, please. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on items not on the meeting agenda tonight? Please come up. Yeah, come right up here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anna Harrington, and I'm a sophomore at St. Helena High School. I am also a member of the cast of the spring musical, The Addams Family, where I play Wednesday Addams. I'm here today to ask you to consider allowing our cast to perform without masks. Although we understand the necessity of wearing masks in the classroom, we would like to take them off for our shows. Our ability to perform is impacted greatly by wearing masks. Facial expressions are a key part of acting and conveying the story to our audience. It is also very difficult for many cast members, including myself, to have enough breath to support notes while singing. Like the athletes, we would be tested to ensure that no one has COVID when performing, and we would continue to wear masks backstage. We are also observing other safety precautions at our performances by limiting our capacity to half of what the theater seats and ensuring all audience members wear masks and practice social distancing in the theater. Our show opens March 4th and runs the first 2 weekends of the month. After not being able to perform for so long, theater in St. Helena is back, and we hope you come and enjoy it. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Hello, my name is Jean Morrow, and my address is 2974 Silverado Trail. And I'm here today. I have 3 children that attend St. Helena School District. And honestly, I'm a very private person, so speaking publicly is not my comfort zone. But right now, I am compelled to speak on behalf of all the children for the expedited return of normalcy. We know the dangers of COVID poses very little threat to school-aged children. And we've had such tunnel vision of totally eradicating COVID that we're not seeing the bigger issues involving kids' mental, social, and emotional well-being. So according to the CDC, and I want to read this because I want to get this right, data from early 2021 notes a 51% increase in ER visits for suspected suicide attempts for girls aged 12 to 17. And that's in comparison to the same period of time in 2019. Our Surgeon General even acknowledged the mental health crisis that our children and young adults are facing due to COVID. It's not COVID that is killing our children. It is COVID policies that are killing our children. I'm advocating for the full removal of masks at school and to end vaccine mandates for kids. We as adults, we need to model healthy behavior for our children. And one way to do that is to recognize COVID as endemic and to not live in fear. Fear only exacerbates anxiety. Recognize that there are vaccines for the vulnerable. Natural immunity is a thing that exists for people who already recovered from COVID. We have early therapeutic interventions for if and when we do get COVID. And above all, we just need to keep ourselves healthy. Eat healthy, stay active, wash your hands. So our children, they've endured enough trauma for the past years. And my oldest, he's 11. He's in the home stretch of his 5th grade year. He's about to be in middle school. 6th grade. He hasn't had a full year of normal schooling since he was in the 2nd grade. And to not acknowledge that and recognize that it's harming the kids is ignorant. It's beyond ignorant. That's pure evil, what we're doing to them right now. And I just would like to end it on a Nelson Mandela quote. There can be no keener revelation to a society's soul than in which the way they treat their children. Thank you.
is Blaise Mall. I live on 2974 Silverwater Trail. I'm 11 years old and I'm in the 5th grade. I remember when life was normal. I remember when I went to school and stores and played sports without wearing masks. My baby sister is 5 years old. She just started kindergarten. All she knows is masks. She doesn't complain about having to wear one, but that doesn't mean it is good for her. No one can see her beautiful smile, and she can't see anyone else's. And also, they make us wear masks that don't work. I'm going to tell you a true story. I was hurt, so I went to the office to call my mom. I asked the front desk lady if I could call my mom. Her response is to cut me off and yell at me to put my mask over my nose. She didn't see me as a hurt child. She saw me as a walking disease not wearing its mask properly. Look what masks have done to people. They make them crazy. They stopped the mask mandate for adults, so why can't they stop it for kids too? I speak for all kids who hate masks. I have just one question for you guys. Now give me one reason why we should wear masks. One. Thank you for your time.
Sorry, the kid got me choked up. My name is Andrea Pendley, and I live at 527 Neptune Court. I'm here in regards to the same thing. It's time to end the masks. Our kids are suffering. Kids are having more issues with speech. They're not seeing smiling faces. My son goes to school, and he doesn't want to wear a mask. He's had 2 severe asthma attacks where we've almost ended up in the hospital due to wearing a mask and the lack of oxygen that he's not getting from wearing and not breathing fresh air. I'm here to just say enough is enough. Like, why are we so in fear of COVID? Most of us have had it at this point. We've made it through. The kids are less than 1% chance of having any severe issues. My son is severely asthmatic. He's been fine. It's just time to let them go back to normal. Let's see their smiling faces. That's it.
Are there any participants who are watching the meeting via Zoom who would like to provide public comment? If so, please hover towards the bottom of your screen and raise your electronic hand. There's no public comment.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'll have a few brief comments, and then I think we only have 5 minutes, but I'd like to open it up for questions. And just thank you for having us here and entertaining the conversation. As most of you know, we're in active conversations with the city of St. Helena and the citizens of St. Helena to talk about the route opportunities between downtown St. Helena to Pratt Avenue. We want to make sure that we hear from everybody in the community about the trail selection. This is your city, it's your trail, and so we want to have that open forum. Not all of the feedback has been received, so you're getting preliminary information, but not the full information. We've conducted all 4 face-to-face and Zoom town halls with the city of St. Helena. In addition, I've met with the primary and elementary school parent group. I recently met with the high school leadership team, and I have 2 additional meetings with the parent groups of the middle school and the high school coming up on the 28th and the 2nd of March. Quick update on the trail selection, since I think Chuck McMinn was here a month ago. At the time, there were 3 trail options. We met with City Hall. The city added a 4th trail option. And when we conducted the survey, we added a 5th option. So I'll quickly go over those. 2 of them are on Oak, so I don't need to repeat all of this. 2 of them are on Oak, starting on Spring or on Mitchell, and coming around Adams. The 3rd route is taking Pope to Church and connecting with the railroad right away, then continuing on to Pratt. The 4th option, which was commissioned by the city, was a route option from Pratt around to College Avenue and down to Mills Avenue that would bypass downtown and stay predominantly on the far east side of the city limits. The 5th option, as I mentioned, is no route in city of St. Helena. The city and the Vine Trail are giving that option to the citizens. We don't think that's the right option, but we certainly want people to vote. And so that would mean that the trail would come to Pratt Avenue, and maybe we hope would go as far as Grayson, and then the cyclists, pedestrians, or whatever would have to select a route to get through town on their own. The challenge with that is doesn't embrace the city's general plan and strategies for active transportation and create route options for the citizens of St. Helena. We also, since we met, we also commissioned, based on the feedback from the school board, a parking study. So it's available. I have a few printed copies, but will be available to you online. The parking study does demonstrate that there are 2 peak times of parking where it is highly reduced in the Oak Avenue area. That's noon and 3 o'clock. Not a surprise to middle school or primary school parents. That's when we have most of the parking considerations or issues. If we were to take a lane of parking on Oak Avenue, it would increase the restrictions during those periods of time. The interesting thing to note is that for 90% of the time, only 65% of the available parking is used in that downtown region area, with the exception of 3 o'clock and noon. But clearly the feedback from the community, despite surveys, it doesn't matter, it's perception. And again, what Chuck has always said is we want this to be a benefit to the city, not a detriment, not something that is a burden to any group or any individual. Whether you live on or work on Oak or you live on Church, we want to make sure that this is a benefit to everyone, and it's something that everyone can use. I loved, actually, anecdotally, the feedback from the high school student leadership team. One of the suggestions was, could we provide route markers to help direct people to the existing Class 2 and Class 3 routes? And are we sure that we can communicate clearly with an eastbound route how students could actually access the trail and other safe options to get to school? And how do we currently communicate that? So I enjoyed a lot of the feedback. There was some other feedback about some other trail options. And so they are looking at some of those options, including an alternate route on Charter Oak to Allison. And so that's being considered. But right now, the survey is going to be active until next week. And then we'll be compiling that survey data. This is for the city survey, to take it to the Active Transportation and Safety Committee. And at that time, they'll consider all of those votes and the open public comment on their decision and recommendation to the City Council. And then we'll be reporting that out to the City Council in March. So with that summary, I'd love to answer any questions that you might have or any additional concerns that you might like to share.
I'll first ask for public comment, if anybody present has any public comment. And Erica, if you would ask.
We do have some public comment. Just one moment. Anthony P., you're allowed to
Hello.
speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so this is kind of a side note. Having access for kids to have a safer route to school sounds great. Having markers sounds great. But I think before any of that happens, what you need to do is unmask the kids. It's time to unmask the kids.
Okay, so I'm sorry,
unmask
that's not, this is not about the Vine Trail. So I'm gonna, if you want to speak to the Vine Trail,
No, I'm just saying you need to unmask the kids before.
okay. Okay.
Is there any other public comment online?
No? Okay. Trustees, do you have any questions? Comments?
So you said that there's two other routes that have been, or one other route that's been proposed and a fifth option. The other route, is that available online or
It's-
it hasn't been worked out yet?
It hasn't been worked out. We've been having really robust conversations during the town halls, and in our face-to-face town halls that we had on Saturday and yesterday, we had some excellent comments come through about how they get around town. And so one that was mentioned was it has not been studied, it has not been surveyed, so it's not on any of the survey results that the city will have. But in the fifth route where it says no trail, there is an open comment for people to write their suggestions about trail alternatives. Again, we wanted to open it up for full, public comment so that everybody feels that they have a chance to be heard. So it'd be premature I can tell it to you, but it would be premature for me to say that it's actually a viable option. There's two options that even the one that the city contracted, it hasn't been evaluated to its full extent because there's probably about 10 or 12 easements that would be necessary in that particular route option. That's the Far East route. It was just commissioned less than 3 weeks ago, so there hasn't been a lot of time to evaluate it. But again, it's an option that the city wanted to make sure everybody had the chance to vote on.
Thank you. And I think for everybody's benefit and people watching and zooming in, the survey is available on the city website or the
Yes.
Vine Trail website or both?
There's two surveys.
Okay.
I'll get to that. So there's
Okay.
there's a city survey that has a shorter time frame because they want to collect the data before the Active Transportation Committee. And so that is on the city's website. If you go to the City of St. Helena website, it's very clear where you can go on and go to the Vine Trail page. You'll not only see how to get to the survey, but it'll also include all of the studies, the maps, and the recommendations from the presentations that we've made over the last several weeks. So all of that data is open and for review for the public. There's also a link on the city website to the Napa Valley Vine Transportation Survey. And that survey is actually looking at how people use the route, the trail, and what barriers might be in front of some residents to use the trail. The reason we want to ask those questions is that for the state grant that we are applying for active transportation, it includes the entire community of Yountville through Oakville to Rutherford to St. Helena. And so we want comments from all residents about the impact of the trail. And so it asks more detailed information about usage, barriers, and we also want to understand the nuances of critical audience like seniors and students. And so that's that survey, and it's also available in English and in Spanish.
Okay.
And we'll have that open probably until the second week of March. because we'll use that data for our final presentation to the City Council.
Okay, great. Thank you. Trustees, anything else?
I think my question has been answered, but so the parking study, that's on the city website, is that
You know,
correct?
I just noticed that they didn't publish it on the city survey, which is why I sent it to Mary Lou
Okay.
this afternoon, because I wanted you to have that. We really think that with all of the public comments about Oak Avenue, that both the Spring and Mitchell are really kind of off the table at this point. It's still an option. I have to say, I'm still encouraged because every meeting that we have, someone will positively talk about the trail impact, particularly as it connects the schools. But we also understand that, you know, the impact to business in the community is a very big concern, and losing parking. We know that we can't mediate that by changing bus routes or taking parking away from other fields or other services. So, you know, while we're looking at all options, you know, the parking study is just, I think, good reading, and we're glad that we did the information.
Right.
But we hear overwhelmingly that Oak is really going to be a kind of a non-starter.
Okay.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for coming in and updating us. We appreciate your time very
Absolutely,
much.
call me
Okay.
anytime.
Okay.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you. Okay, item 7B, recognition of the St. Helena Unified School District Teacher of the Year and finalists. Dr. Wilson, please.
Thank you, President Pelosi. This year marked a change in the Teacher of the Year process for the County of Napa. In years past, it was a county-wide process where members of the school communities were nominated to a county-wide process, and then they would go through a vetting process with applications and a read with narrowing down of candidates. And you'll recall in the past that many years our teachers have been representatives to the Napa County Teacher of the Year process. This year, it was isolated to districts specifically, and then will go to the county process. And so within St. Helena and its community, our members of the public, our teachers, our employees, our parents were able to nominate teachers who they believed were extraordinary and served our students well. In that process, we had a number of nominations, and a number of our teachers chose to go through the application process, which included a letter of endorsement from their principal and an essay that they were to write a day in the life in their classroom and how they serve students. There was a process that was put into place that was very objective with readers of those applications, and I'm very pleased to share with you that we had great applicants. We have incredible teachers on our campuses, and at this time, Ms. Cox is going to share with you one of the finalists. Mr. Cinto is going to share with you two of the finalists and our Teacher of the Year. So, Ms. Cox, will you begin, please? Our finalists could not be here tonight, but we wanted to celebrate them nevertheless.
The finalist from RLS is Miss Vicki Sims, who is our amazing PE teacher, along with so many other things. The reason she's not here tonight is because she is also the athletic director, and there's a wrestling meet at RLS, and as is typical for her, she wanted to be there for the entire meet and not disappoint the kids with her presence. She would never put herself in front of kids, and that is pretty much all I need to say about Miss Vicki. She is, in each school, there is always that person that makes school work, and Miss Vicki is that person. She has amazing connections with kids. She lives in Napa, but you would think she lived here because she is at school all the time. She coaches. In addition to coaching, in addition to being the athletic director, she is also the web leader where everybody belongs, and has been a huge part of making sure that incoming sixth graders feel like a part of our school. She's also a part of Safe School Ambassadors to make sure that all students feel safe and comfortable at RLS. She's also our ASB in charge of ASB, and she also has a leadership class that she teaches, and she has taken all that on with the most positive attitude you could ever imagine. I can't think of any time anyone has had a bad word to say about anything that she does. I believe Macy probably had her for a coach at some point, or at least a teacher, and I'm sure would be able to attest to the same thing. She is a wonderful person, and she is so deserving of this honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening. I had to write mine down, sorry. Well, first, Mad Squared. I call them Mad Squared because Madeline Madison, I'm going to actually talk about them at the same time. For those of you that recall, I believe some of you had students in the district, Madeline had some big shoes to fill. She took over for departing Frank Motzi, penultimate diplomat. But Madeline also recruited Madison. Both of them taught at Branham High School in San Jose. And I remember the day he came up to visit. Madison is originally from Vallejo, and he came to visit with his wife and introduced us all, and it was obviously was fortuitous. So that previous experience at Branham High School has brought great perspective for both students and staff alike. Working in other schools is a great reminder of the fortunate environment that we have here in St. Helena. Both Madeline and Madison quickly evidenced both their passion and leadership, assuming roles within their respective departments in the school at large. Madeline is our activities director. It's said that good institutions are comprised of both the young and the old, and as I sadly find myself on the latter end of those two, I'm continually refreshed by both these deserving candidates. Madison has been instrumental in making St. Helena High School the poster child for dual enrollment throughout the county and beyond. We now have 11 classes, while at the same time teaching pre-integrated 1 math, infusing engaging problems that address racial disparities in data, money, and other real-world scenarios to our students in that class. Madeline has brought an amazing diverse skill set, teaching everything from AVID, dance, AP, world history, regular world history, and obviously student leadership. Her following among students is second to none. SHS is a school. It is because of the caring and passionate educators like Madeline and Madison. And now for our Teacher of the Year, come on up. All right. With this recognition, Judy's professional pedigree now spans local, statewide, and yes, national recognition. I can remember sitting on Judy's interview panel thinking how amazingly polished she was and how lucky and fortunate we were as an institution. I can tell you with all certainty that it was not for show, as she remains just as energized, committed, and passionate about her work today as she was then. Judy has been instrumental in bridging the previous instructional gap between science and career technical education, a nod to our previous work around equity. She has achieved this both through humility, curiosity, and by engaging her colleagues. She is a consummate professional. Personally speaking, in an affinity of mine, when walking into Judy's classroom, you might think she was a relative of Marie Kondo, for those of you that understand the KonMari method. As it exudes both tidiness and intention, her organization is just another vehicle for her students' success. In closing, and most telling about Judy is the respect and affection she has of her students. Not only was she nominated by colleagues and students for this award, she is the most enthusiastic choice for the dunk tank at the FFA casino night. Although Fetters hasn't been to that one. Yeah, no, for different reasons. She's surrounded by students in class, lunchtime, during access period, and maintains a loyal following of graduates. There's no doubt that Judy is deserving of this recognition, and we look forward to her taking the next step as she moves on to the county and then hopefully state. Congratulations, Judy.
I just want to say I'm really honored to be representing St. Helena at the Napa County level for this award. I'm just humbled and honored, and I can't believe it, but especially hearing after all the amazing teachers. My time at St. Helena has been incredible, and we can't do what we do, teachers, ag teachers, students, without the support that we have from board, administrators, parents, communities, families, and our students. And I love my job, and thank you for all you do for us as teachers and as the ag department. So, thank you.
Thank you. Public comment?
We want a picture?
Yeah, absolutely.
Call for public comment first.
But is there anybody present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Oh, yeah.
Brandon couldn't be here, so I'm stepping in for him.
Malcolm, if you can give your message at the microphone so that the community can hear as well.
Thank you. Hi there, Malcolm McLean, RLS Middle School, here on behalf of Brandon Farrell as part of the St. Helena Teachers Association. The SHTA would like to congratulate Judy Ashwanden of our SHHS Ag Department. For several years now, Judy has been a primary leader in one of the best agricultural departments in the state of California. Our Ag Department continues to help students achieve success through a variety of programs, and Judy has brought a level of commitment, professionalism, and enthusiasm that our students strive to emulate. Thank you for all that you do for our students. Brandon Farrell, SHTA President. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Madrigal, is there anything on our online platform?
Does anyone participating via Zoom care to publicly comment on agenda item 7B? There's no public
Okay,
comment.
thank you so much. Trustees, are we ready for our photo? And if you'd like to say anything to Ms. Ashwanden as well, please feel free.
I do want to say something. I just want to say that it's always great to see her at the Napa Town and Country Fair, where all the students are showing their animals. And I remember I think the first time I remember seeing Judy there, she was expecting, and she was just out there with the kids and at the fair and in the corrals with the students and their animals, and it just shows her dedication to our students, and that it is a big job to do the project that you're doing, and our students are so lucky to have you. Thank you.
Yeah. Agree. Thank you so much. Okay. We're going to do a photo now.
President Pelosi, as everyone is making their way back to their seats, we will take a break following item C to celebrate with Ms. Ashwanden. And there are technical difficulties with Channel 27.
Okay.
So we are streaming on Channel 28 tonight.
Okay, Channel 28. Thank you. Okay, Macy, item 7C, please. presentation of the student representative of the board.
Hello, everyone. Is my mic working? Yeah. Okay. This is my board report for the month of February, and just a fair warning, my glasses are at home, so I might have a little bit of trouble seeing, but well, you know, it's okay. I think I should be okay. Okay. Let's see. This way? Yeah. There we go. Okay. So at St. Helena High School, we used our goal that Student Congress has come up with to improve student-teacher relationships. And with that result, we decided to create Canvas, which is a poster-making company online to show off staff and give little fun facts, where they went to college, what their hobbies are. And our plan is to hang it on teachers' walls, and we'll get them printed in color, just so students can get to know their teachers better or get to know their future teachers better, just to make students more comfortable. We are also still looking for prom venues because prom is sneaking up on us really quickly. We plan to have prom hopefully on May 14th, but we are having a little bit of trouble finding facilities that can accommodate the party size that prom is, while being COVID safe and outdoors preferably, as of now at least. Both girls and boys basketball, when I made this, they were still playing, but they have completed their seasons. Boys basketball actually went to playoffs in San Francisco, so that was really exciting. And wrestling as well. I believe wrestling's over as well. And sports games have had high attendance in general, lots of student participation in the student section, lots of excitement, which has really made the teams very happy. And FFA Spirit Week is next week, starting on Tuesday. I believe it is Blue and Gold Day, which is FFA's colors. And then we have recognized Black History Month on campus in accordance with the monthly resolution. So we have been hanging posters around highlighting people important in Black history, and giving a picture of them with some of their fun facts as well. And we just wanted to congratulate Clayton Burton, Talia Ritchie, and Brandon Diaz for being selected as student representatives on the City Council Student Liaison. So I think last meeting I didn't have the names yet, but we have our winners selected, so that's super exciting. Okay, and at the RLS, they had their wellness fair on January 27th, which is held every year with the collaboration of Blue Zone, RLS, and Adventist Health. So in these photos that Ms. Cox sent me, they are doing yoga in the quad area, which is, I don't know if you can see, it's pretty fun. Let's see. I also visited math classes. I visited 7th grade math and 8th grade math briefly with Mrs. Allenson and Ms. Carnes. So in Mrs. Allenson's class, they're currently learning how to solve two-step inequalities, which is shown in the picture. And that week, students watched a presentation about cyberbullying and cybersecurity to learn about how to protect yourself while using the internet. And parents could also watch the presentation virtually for a few days during that week. And wrestling practice had began, but matches were delayed due to COVID. So I don't know if matches are happening now, but practices were starting. So St. Helena Elementary School, when I went, they had a lot of art and color to present to me, which was really exciting. The 4th grade is studying earthquakes, or they were studying earthquakes at the moment. So they were learning new vocabulary like subduction, divergent, and they were making art based on seismographs of earthquakes. So on the bottom left, you can see that they used watercolor to make their seismographs colorful and unique from one another. And those two in general struck me as very different. So it was interesting to see the different approaches that they had. And they learned about how earthquakes have been measured over time. They read about the San Francisco earthquakes in articles. And then the Tonga earthquake happened right around the same time, so they were able to compare the differences from 1906 to now. And then another art piece they did was they did blackout poetry. So what it was they had read a novel called Chasing Secrets by Jennifer Choldenko. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. But so blackout poetry is essentially where you make your own poetry from a page in a book, but you black out letters that you don't want present, and then you leave letters or words blank that you want to highlight, and from there you make your own story. So based on their stories, they created an art shape demonstrating what their story was about. So I believe the one second from the right is about police brutality, which is why they made it a badge shape. And then the one on the far left was about love and relationships, which is why they made it in the shape of a heart. And at the primary school, I was able to watch kindergarten tutoring with Mrs. Ledesma and Mrs. Guerrero, which was super fun. They were working on tracing their names on their name card with different colors every time they traced it. And the two pieces on the left are them learning how to make letters with Play-Doh. So on the left we have an uppercase M, and on the right we have a lowercase m. So they were rolling it as Mrs. Guerrero demonstrated, and then they copied her and making it themselves. And they did a few different letters, and they were really enjoying themselves. So it was really cute to watch. All right, and that concludes my report. I'll open it up to any questions or comments. Thank you.
Is there anybody present who would like to publicly comment on this agenda item? Ms. Madrigal, do we have any online comments?
Would anyone in the audience, the Zoom audience, care to comment on item 7C? There's no public comment?
Okay, thank you. Trustees, questions, comments, or? No? Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Keep an ear out for a prom venue, right? Okay. Okay, at this point, we're going to take a break and have a celebration for our Teacher of the Year, work on our communication issue perhaps, and we'll see you 15 minutes. Thank you so much. Okay, we are back in session. As a reminder again, because of the technical difficulties, the board meeting is being broadcast on channel 28, not channel 27. So thank you for tuning in to channel 28. We'll carry on now with item 8A, which is a board member report, and I'd like to call on Trustee Olguin.
All right. So I had the opportunity to visit the elementary school on, February 8th with Superintendent Wilson, and thank you, Principal Pearson, for your time. We had the opportunity to visit the schools, the specials, so that was something that we had the opportunity to go do, and so I'll go ahead and go to the next slide. Yeah. So this was PE class, and this was Mr. Martin. So it was a really, really nice week last week, or the 8th, where it was warmer, so kids were excited to be outside. Mr. Martin was preparing students for a relay race, and so he was kind of going over all the different positions and the handling of the baton, so we were able to watch the kids run around elementary field. And it was great to just see the kids encourage each other as they were running around us. Go ahead, next slide. This is Mr. Binder's music class. The group was learning to play ukulele. And I think what impressed me out of this class is if you've ever coached or tried to teach kids something with instruments, it's pretty hard, but he had them all really engaged. They weren't like strumming, they were actually going through all the finger positions, and he was talking about the notes, so they weren't even actually strumming, they were just learning that. And so again, they were really engaged. He had them working with partners, so they were checking their finger positions, and so that was something that he was working with the students. And so the other piece, once he did that, he actually integrated technology. So that's not a Promethean board, or I'm not sure if that's a Promethean board, but anyways, he had the screen, and he put on a video with music, and it was interesting to watch them integrate, just because, again, if you've been in music class like I was like 20 or 30 years ago, it wasn't taught like that. So the fact that he was able to like incorporate technology and then use the strumming, and they sounded good. So they were playing their strumming their G chords. I think that's what they were playing. And overall, just he was very excited about his group. He said that I think it was their third day, and he said they were doing really awesome. And I think the thing that really stuck out to me, this is the first time I meet Mr. Binder, is just how enthusiastic he is and how passionate he is about music. And so he was right there with them, jamming out with them. And so I think that is very telling to see why those students are really engaged, because he's really engaged and enthusiastic about what he's teaching. So that was great to see. We'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So this was a B-STEAM class. I think Macy alluded to the fourth graders. They were learning earthquake in their classroom. So what the B-STEAM teacher was doing here is she tries to tie in things that they're learning in other classes. So they were learning about earthquakes, and so in B-STEAM they were actually working on this thing, the earthquake challenge. And so the groups were asked to plan and formulate their design. So the top left, that's one of the structures. You can't really see it in the picture, but it was a little platform, and then she turns it on and it just shakes, so it like simulating an earthquake. And so the kids were asked to put together these little structures using toothpicks, cardboard, and Play-Doh. So the kids were grouped in different groups, and so I think the previous week they had done it all on paper, where they, planned out everything and were doing their ideas and plans, and this was going to be the simulation. So they were making their adjustments and modifications. And with this, I mean, obviously it just it really just shows the collaboration, testing, failing, adjusting things, so they get the opportunity to try different things. She also mentioned that the class is partially taught in Spanish. So I think when we were trying to incorporate more Spanish into the classes, this was one of the ways that they were doing it, through B-STEAM. So she was mentioning that she teaches the Spanish in terms of like identifying tools and just different commands in Spanish. So they're getting some Spanish within the class. And it was cool to see too, an observation that I observed was in the far right picture right here, Principal Pearson mentioned that the student on the left, he just recently got here from El Salvador. And so I was talking to him a little bit before. He was by himself, but his partner actually was translating and is bilingual, and so she was communicating with him. And I thought it was cool to see just that the fact that, you know, even though the language barrier is there, she was able to like engage him and let him be part of the group and part of the project. So that was really nice to see. Let's see. Before I switch to the next slide, we also had, so this was that class, and the opportunity to talk a little bit with Principal Pearson. She talked a little bit about the decline in absences, and in terms of with COVID. She said early on, right after the vacation, there was a high number of absences due to either COVID or COVID exposure for students, and so she was saying that week there was an actual decline in students. She let us know that a lot of the students that were out for several days were receiving work packets, and that the majority of families were picking up the work along. They were also able to work through Google Classroom, so through some of those activities. And then she just mentioned that the support staff were aware of those students, so that when they do return, they're basically allowed to work with the support so that they're caught up on what they missed. In terms of Black History Month, Principal Pearson mentioned that the staff has done an excellent job incorporating across the school. I'll just mention one thing for each grade level that they're doing. So in third grade, they were going to create a hallway display highlighting Martin Luther King aspirations. In fourth grade, they were going to read a collection of stories that focus upon the challenges faced by African Americans. And then they were going to compare it to the mission period. And what they were looking at is similarities between intolerance experienced by Native Americans to that of Black Americans in the U.S. So that's something that they were going to do. And then for fifth grade, they were going to analyze Amanda Gorman's inaugural poem. And so they're going to read it, and I think if you haven't had an opportunity to, well, you can read it, but I think if you want to get the full power of the inauguration poem, you want to watch it. So that's on YouTube, and I highly recommend that. For last slide, this was on the way out, and this was kind of for Maria, because she's always mentioning the weed abatement, and I think for a lot of us. I've heard her say it, and I've never actually seen it. No, right. Yeah. So I've never seen it, and me and Mary, Superintendent Mary Lou, were walking out. She's like, "This is it, weed abatement." So we actually had a chance to talk to him about it, and I was like, "Let's get let's get a picture." But anyways, and it's for the community too to kind of understand what they're doing. So with this, it's he said it's a potato enzyme. And it kind of reminded me, like, when I was a kid, we used to steam clean our carpets when you rent those machines. And so that's what it looks like. It's like one of those machines, and it's just a bunch of foam and soap. And he said basically in 24 hours, it's pretty much gone. So I went the next day, and you could significantly see the difference. So shout out to Jose, our ground specialist.
Yeah.
And
it's like the foam, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's it. That's my presentation. That wasn't part of the specials, but I thought you'd get a kick out of it.
I'm actually very excited because it is the glyphosate-free,
right.
No Roundup. So
Correct.
that's the.
Yeah. So.
Way to finish strong.
I know, right?
Thank you so much. Okay, item 8B, the Superintendent Subcommittee reports. We had the LCAP on February 15th and Monrovia today. So we'll start with LCAP and Trustees Howe or Kerr, one of you or both of you going to report?
We can both report, but I can start out. First of all, we looked at the data zone surveys, and that was presented by Mary Allen. And that is on social emotional learning, and the surveys are spanning 3rd through 12th grades. And it is right now we had information from the RLS and the high school, And the RLS was the group of students that was given the panel of questions was the Unity Club, and the some of the topics that were discussed there was depression and the perception of that there might be unequal treatment if a student has a discipline issue. So those were issues that were raised at the RLS. In the English 90 class was the group of students that was the panel that was questioned for on social emotional health at the high school. And this is just one of the first groups. So there will be several different groups that will be visited throughout the whole social emotional learning data zone questionnaire. I don't have, is that close enough to the official title? Close enough. Yeah. Mary's nodding at me. So, and then there was just some of the things that I gleaned from it is that staff is very accommodating to calming strategies that students are using for themselves. That's a really good thing to hear, because I think that there seems to be more self-awareness among students of when they do need that break. And also staff is aware that sometimes that we are in a stressful time and students need to kind of self-regulate and are willing to accommodate that. Then the next issue that was addressed was the RLS action plan. And there is a lot that was covered there. Corinne talked about using data to ID learning loss, a questionnaire that was to create PLC leaders, professional learning community leaders, based on feedback from teachers. So that questionnaire went out. Who do you go to when you, what teacher would you go to, or what colleague would you go to if you needed something, some help in this area? And based on the questionnaires that were sent out to the teachers, the leaders for the communities were selected. So it was very staff-driven. In terms of equity, RLS is increasing staff and student awareness on bias. We talked about Mr. Mills' class in the 6th grade. It's very exciting. I won't go into it in more detail, but 6th graders, there is a class that has a curriculum from the, oh my gosh, the curriculum is, can you, what is it? The 6th grade curriculum?
The organization that sponsors that, excuse, yeah.
Anti-Defamation League.
Anti-Defamation League, thank you. So the Anti-Defamation League has created a curriculum that we're using in the 6th grade on this, in one of the specials, and it's on bias. And then we talked about responsibility-centered discipline, and the takeaway from that is that there is stronger teacher-student relationships as a result of the responsibility-centered discipline approaches that are being taken at the high school, at the RLS. So we had, oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's a couple things I could, yes. So when so at the beginning when Trustee Haug was talking about the, it was the student engagement questions is what we were discussing at the very, and so how it's going to be organized this year is where it's going to be the Mr. Cinto and Ms. Cox are going to be the facilitators for each one of their sites, and there's going to be 5 to 7 groups of students. So it'll be a total of about 25 students that will have the engagement questions, and so the engagement questions were put together, kind of put together through a subcommittee, and it was based on the data zone survey. So it's questions that would kind of, see where they're at with their different emotional type of things. So, and they're actually I'm sure we'll share I'm sure the questions will come our way at some point. I don't have them with me this evening. And then I also just want to say at the, during Mrs. Cox's, her action plan, the big picture that I got out of this one, and I think that Trustee Howe will agree with me, is it's amazing. No, I'm not even going to say amazing. It's fantastic, and I have so much gratitude for everyone certainly throughout our district, but from RLS as far as how much support that they give our students, and it's all of our students. I mean, they have a very organized method of making sure that the students are keeping on track and that they're not slipping through. And I was so very impressed. And there was a time at the end of the meeting where, as you know, Dr. Wilson will ask for our reflections and stuff. And I didn't state anything about my reflection, but what I wanted to say was it's incredible, just the support, just like what I said earlier. It's amazing, and I thank you. And please tell your staff, or please mention to your staff that we definitely much appreciate it, and we recognize that. So thank you very much. Thank you. And is there anything else then?
Thank you for clarifying the data zone. I realized I jumped in without explaining what it was.
No problem at all. I think that's the end of our report, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you both very much. Monrovia was today, and Trustee Olguin, would you be so kind?
Sure. So we had smaller group, so it was a little bit shorter, but I think from the reports or the different organizations from the city, Representative Macy already talked about the student liaison, so they mentioned that as well. So congratulations to those 3 students. I guess, for the community that maybe doesn't know what that is, it's the students are going to have an opportunity to interact with City Council and give their voice and advocate for things that they want to bring up at the City Council meeting. So I believe that they're going to be there on February 22nd. And I think the 3 students, he mentioned that they may be rotating, or 1 student at a time, but I'm sure that all 3 of them will be there the first time. He talked a little bit, this was the vice mayor that was speaking at this meeting. He talked about the ballot measures, 2 of them that are coming up for the city of St. Helena that are on the radar for the June election. First one is about storm drain and their infrastructure. That's going to be on there. The second one's revolving the mayor and how the mayor is selected. I guess he said this was something that the community asked as a potential change. Whether it's going to be whether the community is going to vote for the mayor to select him or her, or whether the council would be allowed to select the mayor. So that's what's going to be on the ballot. So meanwhile, the council's working on some criteria for that appointment if it were to happen that they appoint the mayor. And so they're looking at objective criteria. So that's something for the community of a potential change in June. And we'll, as community members, be able to vote on that decision. He mentioned the interim city manager. He previously worked in Calistoga for the last 10 years. And so he knows small town dynamics, so he's going to be filling in. And they're currently in the recruitment process for the city manager. He said it's going to take about 3 to 4 months to do that. The other organization that was there, Blue Zone, he talked about just partnering with the Vine Trail. So the ED was here earlier, and so the piece that Joaquin, who's the executive director, was talking about is that they're making sure that equity is a piece of the Vine Trail input. So their group is helping with translation of materials. And I think they also were going to host like a community face-to-face in Spanish so that they get that input as well. And they're just the same thing, trying to find out what the best route for everyone would be. He mentioned the gardens at the different school districts that they're working with. He mentioned that garden scans that they provided for the districts. He said that the ones in Calistoga have been approved, and I think they're in the process of meeting with the St. Helena district to provide those garden scans. And I think that was pretty much it. Then St. Helena Preschool for All was there. I did a report, and then the district provided. So it was a smaller group, but.
Julio, did the Blue Zone have any update on that walking school bus?
Yeah, or yes, I asked them about that. He said it's still they're still trying to, or I think it's going to be in April, but yeah,
Okay.
and volunteers, because I told him I would like to volunteer. So yeah, he said there'd be more information coming down and that he would let us know when that happens.
All right, that's great. Thank you. Okay, items 8. C and D are written reports from the St. Helena Teachers Association and the California School Employees Association, respectfully. So we'll go on to item 8E, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Wilson, please.
Thank you again, President Pelosi. As you recall, in the previous board meeting, in the January board meeting, you did pass the resolution for Black History Month. And in each of the principals' reports, you'll find a variety of activities that are occurring either in this month's report or next month's report, much like Trustee Olguin shared, that are happening at the elementary school. So it's a joy to know that many activities are celebrating Black history. I'm proud to be wearing an Addams Family t-shirt. It's been a little bit of time since I've received a drama shirt. I received this, and typically we'll wear these the night of a board meeting prior to performances. And as one of our cast members mentioned earlier tonight, the Addams Family will be showing in our Performing Arts Center the first couple of weeks of March. And so I do encourage everyone to get tickets now and fast. There is limited seating, and the show does prove to be quite a performance. So please come and enjoy our students and the theater. I reported to you last month that in January we held a Wellness Wednesday for our employees, and we're moving forward with a Wellness Wednesday encore for the month of March during the Vertical Articulation Day once again. It was well received. Our employees were very appreciative of the time to exercise, swim, take a yoga class, spend time walking. And so we will bring one more back this school year during the month of March. We do continue to offer free COVID testing after school for all of our students and employees who are asymptomatic. Currently, it's 5 days a week, 2 days at the primary school, 2 days at the middle school, and then on Wednesday afternoons in collaboration with the Boys and Girls Club. So students who are at the Boys and Girls Club who were not able to access the free testing can now do so with their parents connecting with the Boys and Girls Club, making that notification, and then the Boys and Girls Club will bring the students to a testing table. That's for first through fifth grade. The kindergartners can be tested at the primary school the 2 days that that testing is happening at that site. And that is the rapid antigen testing. And then wanted to make sure that all of you are aware that we are able now to welcome volunteers back into our classrooms. We are asking parents to go online either on the district website or the school site websites. Erica's showing on the screen right now the guide for volunteers that's been updated to align with new protocols. And there's an application process, very simple to fill out. Parents do need to have a current TB on file, TB test on file, fingerprints on file, and then also full vaccination status on file. They can work with their principals and their teachers to determine if there's a volunteer need. And as I said, that'll become effective February 28th. And just a quick mask update for you. This was also a part of my video this week. Although the California mask mandate was lifted this week by Governor Newsom, that does not apply to public schools, hospitals, or any other congregate setting, transportation as well, if you ride a bus or a plane. So we are still under the California public health mandates, which require that all of us wear masks while we are in the public school setting. We are waiting for an update. It is slated to come to us on February 28th. seems like a busy day for everyone. We do not know exactly what that update will give us. It has been positioned that there will be some lightening of the requirements for schools and other aggregate settings. Don't know for sure, but we will, of course, keep very close tabs on that. And I do know that Dr. Reluccio, our public health officer, plans to follow whatever updates and guidance is given by CDPH. We will follow as well. So she will not impose stricter guidance than what California Public Health allows us to do. That concludes my report.
So it's like 6 magic school days. We have to wait, right?
It is just 6 magic school days, yes, for that update.
For that information.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Okay, items 8F, G, H, and I are our principals' reports that are written reports submitted to us. And thank you very much. We do truly always enjoy getting those reports. And as my former president had said, we always encourage our community to read those reports because they are great snapshots of highlights happening on the schools. Okay, on to item 9A is the consent agenda. The consent agenda contains routine items judged as appropriate to be acted upon in one motion. If a board member requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda, the item will be considered under discussion/action items. Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Ms. Madrigal, is there any online?
Are there any online participants who wish to comment on the consent agenda? There's no public comment.
Okay. Were there any written comments submitted by members of the public?
No written comments.
Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item or a request to have an item pulled? No. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson, will you call a roll call vote, please?
Absolutely. Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, on to item 10A. This is the request to accept gifts, donations, or earmarked funds. And Trustee Howard, can I ask you to read the list of donations? Would you be so kind? I know I didn't ask you, but I know you like to read those things. So,
Well, it's very important to read them.
Yes.
You just get it called up.
okay. I really did blindside you. Sorry about that.
So the St. Helena Unified School District received 9 commercial electric 2 by 4 foot by 4 foot LED backlit Troffer 2-pack light fixtures totaling $916.96 from John Anderson from Woodhouse Chocolate. Thank you. The St. Helena High School received the following donations totaling $20,225. $6,000 from the Alicia Ray Living Trust for 2022 scholarships. The $1,000 from the Napa County Ag in the Classroom for ASB FFA General. $2,000 from SHHS Ag Boosters for ASB FFA General. $8,000 from Carlo Trinchero for ASB Football. $25 from Mieko Smith for ASB Volleyball. $2,000 from Kristen Martin for band instruments with a value of $2,000. $200 for St. Helena Performing Arts Boosters for the choir. $1,000 from Gail S. Cook for general drama donations. And $7,000 for St. Helena Performing Arts Boosters for the 2021 scholarships. Thank you, everyone. We live in a great, generous community, and we really appreciate everything that you donate is really put to good use for all of our students.
Agree. Thank you very much for reading those. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Ms. Madrigal, any public comment on the online platform?
Any public comment from our Zoom participants? There's no public comment.
Thank you. Trustees, do you have any questions about this agenda item? Okay. Is there a motion to accept the gifts, donations, or earmarked funds as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Macy, would you like to cast a preferential vote?
Aye.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson, would you call a roll call vote?
Trustee Simon? Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, we'll move on to item 11A. This is the 2021-22 Local Control Accountability Plan update from the primary school. Report on equity and inclusion, and I would like to call on the principal, Mrs. Rebecca Rocha.
Good evening, members of the board and district office staff. This is our presentation from the primary school on equity and inclusion. I put this up here so that as I talk about what I chose to highlight tonight, it really hopefully paints a picture of just one thing that we're doing, that we have been doing this year at the primary school that really addresses equity, and that is doing providing for each child what they truly need. It's not the same thing for each child. So in August, at the beginning of the school year, with our second grade students, we have found that they were the class that was most impacted by learning loss, as they had their kindergarten year interrupted and then part of their first grade year. Even though they got to come back in November, it wasn't the same experience and there were shorter school days. This was the data at the start of the school year in terms of reading levels. There was a big sense of urgency with teachers, and we decided to have an all hands on deck approach to really help the students. This is what we reference when we're talking about reading levels. This is just a graph that shows the developmental reading assessment. When I talk about reading levels, that's what I'm referring to. And this, you can refer back to this. It's just showing trimester expectations in a normal school year of where a child should be at their reading level. We decided to implement what is called the PRESS model. It's a model that we had at my former school that we read about in a magazine, in an educational magazine, and it's a very intentional way of providing reading instruction in the school day, rather than having students being pulled out at random times to maybe go to intervention or go to the resource teacher. It's using all the resources at the same time to work with the student so that they're all being served within that same time block. So what we did was we had students in our time with guided reading in second grade. We're doing the same thing in first grade. They are rotating between the classroom teacher, some of them with the instructional aid, some students go to reading intervention, students with an IEP go to the resource specialist, all at the same time. Designated students were also getting a third group of reading intervention in the afternoon with, we had 3 kindergarten teachers who provided that intervention after their students went home. Teachers also were sharing students. One of the frustrations was that maybe they only had 3 students, and one teacher had 3 students at one level. There was such a range of levels that we decided, why don't you group students between 2 classes and condense the time. That frees up your time to work with more students. So students have been going all over the place during that hour of reading block time. This is really everyone that's been involved in this. I wanted to get a group picture, but I couldn't. But I just put all the names of everyone that's involved in this model so that you can see all of these teachers and instructional aides and additional support staff that were working with students during this time. This is a sample schedule of what we considered our students that were tier 2 would really be our students that were perhaps 1 year behind, let's say reading at a first grade level. And then our tier 3 students would have been students that were reading at a kindergarten level. So you can see the difference in the services they were getting within that time block. The tier 2 students had their reading group with the classroom teacher and then with an instructional aide. And then you can see the tier 3 students who they went to for their support. We did have some tier 2 students also stay after school We had 2 different teachers that were doing a reading club twice a week. We were very intentional with the instructional aid support schedule. In years past, aides would go to classrooms at different times, and they would support teachers in a way that the teachers may have needed them at that time. And with this model, we have our aides solely focused on guided reading and supporting students in the morning with reading and in the afternoon with math. So we have very intentional groupings in terms of who those aides are working with. Sometimes they're working with those tier 2 students, and they're also working with students who are reading at grade level. The idea with the press model is that you want to use your most qualified staff working with your most at-risk students, and then decide how the other students will be served. So these were our results from September, because obviously we didn't start this program in August. We really started it in September through January, when teachers did a round of progress monitoring. So all students made growth. We had 14 students that grew 1 level. I won't read all of that for you, but please take a moment to look at that data. We had 21 students that made 1 year's growth in that time. So they grew 1 grade level in that time frame. And we had an increase of 16 more students who were reading at the 2nd grade level. This was one case study, one student in 2nd grade who's an English language learner. She started in August at a DRA level 3, which would be considered end of kindergarten. By the beginning of November, she had moved to a level 12, which is almost to the end of 1st grade. So she made almost 1 year's growth in 1 trimester. So reflections and next steps, we've been continuing with our intervention model and schedule. The one difference is that now, because so many students have made growth, we have instead of 3 kindergarten teachers in the afternoon working with students, we have 2. And now they're focused on what we're calling the bubble students, those students who are almost at grade level. So they're between a level 14 and 18. And we really think that with this additional support, we can get them up to 2nd grade level before the end of the year. And we will continue progress monitoring. These are all the assessments that we administer at the primary school in 2nd grade. And we will update the schedule and assignments based on our student data in March. So it's a constant movement of students based on their growth. So that concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Ms. Madrigal, any online public comment?
Are there any Zoom participants who would like to comment on this item?
Oops, sorry, I set a timer.
There's no
I
public
actually
comment.
did it in less than 7 minutes. I didn't know that it was actually going to be. I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. I know. I can't find where the
Yeah.
clock is. Well, sorry, I had to keep but I couldn't see the timer as I was talking, so that didn't really help.
That's fine. Trustees, any questions or comments?
I'm just wondering, because we have the opening up of volunteers, parent volunteers coming into the classroom, will there be a place for parent volunteers in this framework, or would they be better served in a different setting?
I think that's something we could definitely consider, especially if we could train them on how to work on targeted skills with students. Yes. We would welcome that.
Yeah, so thank you for your entire school, actually, everyone, just the all hands on deck is I wanted to say is what is needed, and it was done. So, and it's continuing. So I really appreciate that, and I am very thrilled to see that these our students are increasing their DRA levels. Is that DRA? Is that right?
Correct.
DRA levels and things too, through just in the last couple of months. So that's great. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to date myself by saying, I think everybody deserves a gold star, because I know we don't do that anymore. But as I was reading that growth between August and the end of October, I mean, I mean, major kudos. You and your staff should be so proud. That's quite significant. So, you know, congratulations and thank you to everybody for doing that work to bring those students to get, you know, to increase their performance. So, thank you. Anybody else?
I was just curious to ask how the smaller class size is that a benefit, do you think, to learning recovery? Or?
Definitely in second grade, the classes are at 20, so they're not as small as the other classes. But in kindergarten and first grade, it has definitely been a huge asset to not have, for example, I believe first grade is an average of 15 students. So to be able to meet their needs with, you know, with that amount of students definitely is much more attainable. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Excuse me. Okay, item 11B, the presentation on the change in the Robert Louis Stevenson daily bell schedule for the 22-23 school year. Ms. Corinne Cox.
Hello. Wait for that to come up. So I'm here to let you know about a schedule that will be taking effect next year. In a second, I'll let you know. Thank you, Erica. You can go ahead and go to the next. Oh, I've got it. Thank you. So in 2016, some of you may recall, RLS changed the schedule so that we could better align with the high school because we have so many shared teachers. One of the unintended consequences of that change was to significantly increase the instructional minutes at RLS. So at the time, we were a bit over 6,000 minutes over the state requirement, and once we did that schedule change, we ended up almost 12,000 minutes, so pretty close to doubling how far we are over the requirement. And I put the other sites over there. We, as a district, teach more than the bare minimum, as we should, and that's really important. And you can see that at each of the sites we are over, and RLS is way, way over in comparison to the other sites. Instructional minutes are intended when the state creates them to increase gradually as students get older and become more developmentally capable of sustaining a longer school day. However, when the schedule change happened, it really increased the minutes in the transition from 5th to 6th grade. And it makes it very difficult for 10 and 11-year-old students to maintain their focus throughout that day. It is a 7-hour day. As adults, we're only expected to maintain our focus for 8 hours. So it's a lot to have a 10-year-old do that. And some of the side effects of having such a long day means that the end-of-day student fatigue makes late afternoon classes really challenging, especially when they are core classes. We have data showing that behavior issues increase later in the day. It's challenging for student athletes because we have to travel, and so they often miss the entire last period of the day. Same thing with afternoon appointments, as I'm sure you're all aware. If you can get an appointment as late as 4 o'clock, that's a miracle, and that means you have to leave by 3 really to get to Napa for those things. But as we think through this, we need to be able to share staff with the high school. We have amazing elective teachers, and we do not want to in any way remove that opportunity from our students to get to have those great electives. So that's the tricky part. When you look at the increase in the length of the day, it's really substantially increased when students come to RLS. And that middle school transition is hard for kids, and it's exceptionally hard when they're going 50 minutes longer a day. In the other transitions, it's like 4 minutes from RLS to the high school, 4 minutes longer a day. From the elementary to school to RLS, it's 14 minutes longer a day, and then 50 minutes. So you can see on this slide the state minimum requirement compared to our current bell schedule. When you do the math, that's 90 minutes more every single school day than is required. And I wanted to do a comparison before we made a decision about what are other middle schools in the area doing. So I looked at each of the other middle schools, and they're all in the to 1,600 minutes a week. We were at 1867, and the new schedule is still higher than all of the other schools in the area at 1,709, but much more in line with other schools. So the new schedule reduces the day by 30 minutes. That works to balance the instructional minute increases throughout the district. So instead of being a little bit, kaboom, a little bit, it's more gradual. And that supports students who are transitioning to the middle school. As I stated, the instructional minutes still exceed the state requirement by more than any other site in the district, as well as any other middle school in the area. And it still allows RLS in the high school to continue to share elective teachers, which was hugely important. And was actually the reason that schedule was in the first place happened that way, because we wanted to be able to do that. So this is the new schedule. It's a little bit hard to see. It's small up there, but essentially it shortens each class period by approximately 5 minutes and allows students to be dismissed at 3 o'clock. And I asked both parent group and teachers for their input and what they thought about this plan. And you can see some of the quotes. Specifically, I think of a parent who said her children really love school, but it's a very long day and they're tired. People were surprised at how unbalanced it is, and thought that dividing the increase in instructional minutes between the middle school and the high school is better for students. People are still very glad that we can continue to share elective teachers, and teachers commented that it will give teachers time to talk with students after school and still get to district meetings by 4 o'clock, because RLS teachers have a really, really hard time getting to district meetings on time. Have some next steps planned so that we can make sure everyone's aware of this schedule. I've already updated the teachers and the RLS parent group, and then beginning in March and through the end of the year, we'll be notifying current RLS families. The schedule will be shared at 5th grade student and parent orientation meetings. Of course, we'll update our website, and I will have a Q&A meeting, either Zoom or in person, depending on what's going on at the time. I have no idea, so I can't answer that right now. Any questions?
Excuse me. If there's any public comment on this agenda item or public comment on the online platform? No?
There's no public comment.
Okay, thank you. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
I have a question. So in 2016, when the RLS extended the school day so they could share teachers from the high school for electives, so they extended the school day so they could do that. So now we're decreasing the day, but we can still share the teachers. So, correct? Is that right?
Yes.
So how were we able to shift that, make that still possible, but decrease the school day?
I am a really good schedule maker.
That's
we all
awesome.
have our strengths.
That is hard to do.
And the schedule, the 2016 schedule, there was actually a lot of input and a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and it was in the transition before I arrived and the prior person left. So it was kind of an in-between thing, and everyone was doing their very, very best. There were multiple meetings about it. And I think in asking everybody what they wanted to support kids, not all of the math was looked at. I mean, it really was a matter of, yes, we want to do this for kids. Yes, we want to do this for kids. We need to be able to share teachers. And Mr. Cinto has been super helpful, and both of us worked together really well in figuring out how we can make this work for kids at all sites and still allow them to get the elective that they deserve and that are so wonderful. We would never take that away.
Great. So the teachers will have time to commute, catch
They
their breath.
will. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Because we have a 7-period day, there's that empty 4th period slot.
Okay.
That's aligned with lunch. So it allows people to transition within the day. We used to share elective teachers by having substitutes for them half the time when they were at the other site. There would be someone else covering their classes for part of the period so they could, when they were going back and forth, and the high school was on a different schedule, and some days a week they were there and some they weren't, and that just was not a great system. And so that's why the current schedule was put into place, which solved that problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Other questions?
Trustees, okay, questions?
So that was my question as well, is if you see any challenges as far as the share of the staff. It doesn't seem as that's going to be the case.
I only schedule teachers for the last 3 periods of the day, and Mr. Cinto schedules them primarily the first 3 periods of the day. So we already, was a necessity in the current schedule as well. We still couldn't do that middle of the day because it doesn't give teachers enough time to get from place to place. So we work closely and have met and talked about all of this to make sure that we could make it work.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, including blocks.
One clarification on the transition slide that you talk about here. I think it's slide 5. So right now, obviously, it's like you were saying, it's massive when it goes from elementary to middle. But so the new day is going to be 30 minutes shorter, you said, right?
Right.
So if I'm doing my math correctly, so the transition from then SHUSD to RLS is going to go down to like 20 minutes?
So it'll be
right?
approximately 20-ish
Right.
minutes
So
from
it'll
side
just-
to side. It more or less divides it evenly so that the difference between RLS and the high school will be about 30 minutes, and the
Okay.
difference from RLS to the elementary be about 20 minutes.
Perfect.
What's
Okay.
put in place by the state is that the entire shift happens between 8th grade and 9th grade.
Okay.
Which is also not great for kids. That's really rough.
Yeah.
For kids to be in 8th grade and then be expected to go like an hour longer when they get to 9th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's
great.
splitting it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Anybody else? Or okay, great.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Item 11C, consideration of approval for the mid-year LCAP review 2021-22. And she's already there. Mrs. Mary Allen, please.
Good evening, everybody, tonight. So we have a new state report that's required by the California Department of Education. So it's a mid-year LCAP. LCAP means Local Control Accountability Plan. So before I begin, I just want the audience to know that in the board agenda, the electronic board agenda, there's additional reports related to this PowerPoint that have much more detail than what I'm going to be presenting tonight. Tonight is just a brief overview of what's in those reports. Oops. So what's being presented tonight is the supplement of the annual update to the 21-22 LCAP. And what that means basically is that the state is asking us, we've given you additional dollars in all the districts in the state of California. What are you doing with those dollars? To give a mid-year report on where are those dollars going, and have you had stakeholder feedback on those dollars? Number 2, what they're asking us to do is look at the LCAP that you developed and look at the matrix, which are your accountability measures to meet those goals of the LCAP, and where are you at right now in meeting some of those matrix. And then the last part that they're requiring on the mid-year report is the expenditure of all the actions that we've included in the LCAP. Where are we in reference to our expenditure of those dollars? So that's what's going to be presented tonight in a brief format. The first part is related to the supplement and the additional dollars. So as you're looking right here, I just want to point out, because this kind of gives a context of what they're looking for, is over here where it says as adopted of BOP, which is the budget overview for parents, that's what was adopted in the LCAP for this year. Those are all the dollars that we were putting into the LCAP. And then you go over to where it says the amount per the Budget Act 2022 Budget Act. Those are the additional dollars that we've received in the district. They were not in the LCAP because the final state budget wasn't approved until after the LCAP was approved. So in the supplement, they have 5 prompts, and they wanted us to answer the 5 prompts. This particular document will go back up with the LCAP in June for final approval. Prompt number 1 was just educational partner engagement in the Budget Act funds. And we're talking about, on this particular prompt, the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant and the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program Grant. And I have to applaud Andy Stubbs, Chief Business Official, because she helped put this together in reference to where all our dollars are going and how much engagement we've had from the partners. Many of these have been provided to the board already. So you can see on this slide, what are we doing with those particular additional dollars? Next prompt was use of additional concentration funding. We do not hit the 55% and over in reference to our unduplicated pupil population. That means ELs, homeless, foster youth, and our socioeconomically disadvantaged youth. We're not over 55%, but we still put a lot of dollars into our programming for our unduplicated students. However, we did not get additional concentration grant dollars. Educational partner engagement for one-time federal dollars. This has to do with our in-person instruction, as well as our COVID dollars, as well as our ESSER dollars that we've received. And just asking us, has there been public input on this? And yes, we have. It happens in all of our committee meetings at the superintendent subcommittee. We have an LCAP steering committee. It's been presented to the board. So again, I don't want to go over this, but for the public, certainly look at this to see what we're doing with our dollars. Prompt number 4 is implementation of the ESSER 3 expenditure plan. As Ms. Stubbs has stated before, in our ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and all the other additional dollars that we've received, most of our needs right now with our COVID PPE, which is our personal protective equipment, our cleaning and the HVAC supplies, as well as all the stuff that we need for extended learning, is covered by additional dollars that we've had already. We see ESSER 3 being spent in 22-23, 23-24, which we have the time to be able to use those dollars. So they will be moving forward. Last prompt is using the physical resources consistent with the LCAP. Everything we do in this district is aligned to the LCAP. The LCAP is our plan. It's aligned with our strategic plans from the lower grades to our strategic plan at the district level. So all of our dollars are aligned to our LCAP. The next part of this presentation was the mid-year update on the matrix. The matrix are simply what are those measures we use to make sure that we're meeting the goals of the LCAP. So our goals of the LCAP are the 4 goals that you've seen many times over: increase achievement for all students, embrace racial diversity, equity, and inclusion. Goal number 3 is expand parent and community engagement. And the last goal that we have in the LCAP is support physical and social emotional well-being. And we've heard a lot of that tonight already with the wonderful presentation that Rebecca did, as well as what you're hearing from other folks. So in our LCAP 1, just a brief overview. This is just our matrix, one of our matrix, just slides showing what we have put in there. We use multiple measures. There's not one measure that determines whether we're successful or not. There's multiple measures to see if we've had growth or if we've actually met the outcome goal that we were trying to achieve. If I'm just looking at this slide, I just want to put a brief example out here. Is if you're looking at the 2021 baseline, this is our MAP scores, MAP math winter scores. You can see for 3rd grade, 4th grade, I have an arrow right there. These are the percentage of kids that were scoring below 40%. If you go into this year for our fall MAP data, you can see in 4th grade, that went down. In 5th grade, that went down. I can't quite read the numbers because it's a little small, but that's what we're looking for. Is that number below 40% going down? So that's just how you're reading these matrix as you're going along. We have to show on the status side, is this still in progress? Are we finished with this data matrix, or are we still continuing on? Goal number 2, again, you can see I just highlighted some things in yellow just so they can kind of stand out to you, that you're looking at our baseline of what we had in the LCAP and now mid-year where we're at on some of those data points. Goal number 3, again, just pointing out some of those matrices. And then goal number 4, same thing. Just so you know how to read this, these are our accountability measures. And in our goal, we have a goal number 1, and then you have the matrix of what we're trying to use in reference to whether we met this or not. And then our last part of this report is what are those actions and how much money have we spent on those actions to meet those matrices and to improve and work on those goals. So here, just an example, goal number 1, I can tell you that we have several actions that we work on within the district when we're creating our LCAP. And you're going to see, just looking at this action, if you look to the left side, you see the action and what some of the actions are that we're trying to accomplish. And then what we had put out as far as our budget expenditure and the LCAP, and then to date, what we've actually spent on those items. So that's how you read this. So goal number 1, our actions, just a sample. Again, more in the board report if you want to open those files. Goal number 2, goal number 3, and goal number 4. So just getting an example of where we're at with our dollars and what we've spent and what we're going to continue. This will all come back to you when we actually do the LCAP in June. You will see our final report with the actual dollars from now until the end of the year, all culminated. Thank you. I'm just going quickly, I'm sorry. Culminated at the very end of the school year. And in closing, Assembly Bill 130 required all the local educational agencies to present this update to the annual update, if they could not confuse it anymore, of the 21-22 LCAP and budget overview on or before February 28th. That's why we're doing that now. This is a new thing that came out with the Assembly Bill 130. Also, everything presented tonight is related to our mid-year LCAP report only, and the supplement to the annual LCAP will be included in the 22-23 LCAP. That concludes my report. Questions? It's not the most exciting report, but it is something at least give everybody an idea of where we're at and what we've done.
Is there any public comment on this agenda item or online public comment?
There's no public comment.
Thank you. Trustees, do you have any questions about this agenda item?
I don't have any questions, but I want to commend you for the supplemental and annual, because I was going through the other ones first, and I was like, oh my, this is daunting, and then I hit that one at the very end. I was like, oh, this is what I should have done from the beginning. So thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, because it was very digestible in that presentation to be able to understand and see the dollars attached to it. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the mid-year LCAP review 2021-22 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Macy, would you like to cast a preferential vote?
Yes, aye.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson, will you perform a roll call vote?
Yes, Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, item 11D is the consideration of approval for the 2020-2021 school accountability report cards. Mr. Christopher Heller. No. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Yes,
My
please.
screen
Good evening.
My screen didn't move, so
That's
apologize.
okay. So in support of the Local Control Accountability Plan, schools and school districts are annually required to complete school accountability report cards known as SARCs. And within the SARCs, data pieces related to demographics, standardized test scores, curriculum, Williams Act compliance data, and then other pieces of financial information are included. So while it's a standalone document for approval tonight, the information contained in each SARC contains the vision and mission of the LCAP. So I would ask that the governing board approve these SARCs in concept.
Right, thank you. Excuse me. Is there any public comment or online public comment on this agenda item?
There's no public comment.
Thank you. Trustees, do you have any questions about this agenda item? Is there a motion to approve the 2020-2021 school accountability report cards as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Macy, would you like to cast a preferential vote?
Aye.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson, will you request the roll call vote?
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 11E is the consideration of approval for the revised 2021-22 District Safety Plan. Mrs. Mary Allen, you're up again. Please.
As I don't think I have any PowerPoint, this is a written report in reference to our comprehensive safety plans that get presented every year to the school board at this time. They are submitted to the district office in October from each one of the sites with the updates on any staff or any new telephone numbers, or if we have additional resources that we're reaching out to or need to be in our comprehensive plans. The sites send those up to my office, and they're approved at that time out of my office, and then they come to the school board for your approval. This is the actual safety plans that we teach in reference to our drills, in reference to what we do related to health and safety for the school district. So tonight I'm just asking for your approval of the safety plans for each one of the school sites.
Thank you. Is there any public comment or online public comment on this agenda item?
There is no public comment.
Trustees, do you have any questions about this agenda item? No? I had one question. I know it's on the district website. Do we push this out to family in an email form at any other time, or is it just available on the district website?
It's at the school site, so families can come on in. We do not push it out to the families.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the revised 2021-22 district safety plan as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Macy, would you like to cast a preferential vote?
Aye.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson, will you perform the roll call vote?
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Ogeen?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Is everybody still comfortable moving forward? Does anybody need a break with masks or anything like that? Okay. Item 12A is facilities. We're going to discuss the 2022 Summer Aquatics Programming information. Mrs. Andy Stubbs, please.
Last year, we provided some limited pool programming in alignment with COVID-19 protocols through partnerships with the Waves and the City of St. Helena. And those partnerships were very successful. We were able to provide lap swim and recreational swim opportunities for the community in exchange for use fee waivers for the Waves. And the partnerships eliminated the need to hire district employees and reduced our administrative time as well. And so we would like to continue the partnership with the Waves this coming summer, and programming would look very similar to last year's. However, the Waves are not able to take on group lessons at this time, so we're looking into a possible contract with an independent contractor for group lessons. That was something that we offered several summers ago when we were operating the pool with our own staffing, and we'd like to be able to do that again. And so the next two slides provide some detail about the different programs that we plan to offer this summer, as well as the days of the week and the times. And so I'll just pause for a moment or two on each slide so that you can review those. I'll take a little bit more time on the final slides here with regard to program management and fees. So for this coming summer, we'll do the same thing that we did last year, which is we will waive use fees for the WANV programs in exchange for them providing us with some recreational and lap swim for the community. And what we'll do is negotiate a small profit amount over the break-even point for the Waves to include in our agreement. For example, $8,000 might be a good target figure for this coming summer. And if the full profit amount of $8,000 can not be achieved through the waiver of use fees for the waves during the 2022-23 school year, during the summer for their activities and then going into the school year. The balance will be paid to the waves in June 2023 using funds from those sources that you see there. So using some of the fees that we collect from the city of St. Helena for aquatic aerobics and adventure camp, using fees collected from any independent contractor that we're able to work with for private swim lessons, and then if possible if we need to, using some of the one-time Kaiser grant funds. And we do currently have a balance of over $200,000 in our Kaiser account, and that is comprised mainly of unspent funds over the past few years, and some remaining going into the next couple of years for field trip support and wellness activities and so forth. Next steps include finalizing the agreements with the waves and possibly an independent contractor for the group swim lessons, and then board review and approval of those agreements at an upcoming board meeting. And then with the city of St. Helena, that would just be a regular facility use agreement, Facilitron. We would then promote programming in the community, and then, of course, like last year, have close communications with our partners during the summer. And then going into 2022-23, evaluate and plan for future programming and collaboration with our partners. And I think that this could be a real good long-term solution for managing our pool over the years and being able to provide opportunities for the community while also keeping district administration costs and labor low. And so with that, I would ask if the board had any questions.
Pardon me. Is there any public comment or any online public comment on this agenda item?
There's no public comment.
Thank you. Trustees, do you have any questions about this agenda item?
I have a question about the recreational swim. I noticed that it's going to either be a Saturday or Sunday from noon to 7. That's true. Why can't it be both days on weekends?
Because it's based on the capacity of the waves to be able to provide staff for that.
Okay, thank you.
For the independent contractors for private swim lessons, do we have a history of about how many private swim instructors outside of waves that we've had, or do we really have that many?
We haven't. When we first took over the aquatics program before the pandemic with our own staffing, we, if I recall, and I may ask Joe to come up to the podium, we used our own staff to provide some private lessons and I think some group lessons. And then I'd like to turn it over to Joe to give some more detail.
Okay. Hello. Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
We had group lessons and private lessons taught by our staff, and then there were a few other independent swim instructors that taught swim lessons in our pool and paid a use fee for the lane, and they haven't been they haven't been around for the past couple of years, and some of them moved on to different things, so it's hard to find those. And I've been reaching out to the people and the contacts that I have within the community, and it looks like I have to look out a little bit further outside of the community to find group lessons and other independent contractors, private swim instructors.
Okay.
Is there a way maybe is there a way that we could help get that information out for an opportunity, or is it something that you think it'll fall into place?
I think it'll fall into place. We could put something out there and advertise that we're looking for independent contract swim instructors. We'd have to find out whether or not they have enough insurance and the capacity to teach the lessons, their certifications and things like that. And there's other groups that are out there that actually do this as a part of their business models to provide independent lessons. So I'm going to look for someone who's already established, and hopefully they'll come in and and make an offer on teaching lessons.
Thank you. I had one question. It's just more clarifying for people who are antsy to get back in the water and resume that kind of. Summer 2022 means these programs start once school is out, correct?
Correct. Good question. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I figured, just so that people won't show up on May 1st or something like that. So, okay, thank you.
I have a question. If there is any issue with the outside instructors coming in, is there a potential for students to be teaching again, or is that not something that you're looking to do again?
We could, I could get someone to come in and certify them as teachers with like American Red Cross or another swim instruction style, and bring them in and have them teach. They would still need to provide insurance just in case there was any accident, because as an independent contractor, we don't want them under our umbrella, and they'll be teaching these lessons as their own. And if there was any accident, we would want to be insured, or the instructor to be insured.
I guess maybe the way I should ask the question is if there's because I remember was it 2 years ago when you did the lessons for the preschool, it was the students leading the swim lessons, right?
Yeah, they were our employees.
Right. Okay. So that's something that you're not. That's something you wouldn't go back to, or that you're trying.
We would be bringing them on as staff, and that's something
that you're staying on.
can't
Okay.
do right now.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We're trying to move away from that particular model, just due to some of the challenges there.
Everybody okay? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here, Joe. Okay, excuse me. On to 13A, our first board review of the 22-23 budget assumptions. And that is going to be Mrs. Andy Stubbs. Thank you.
Thank you. And Erica will cursor through the document for me. So this would be the first board review of our budget assumptions for 2022-23. And the Business Operations Committee had the opportunity to look through these assumptions during their meeting on December 8th. And so I'm just going to go through a few things that are highlighted in blue and yellow. And so we'll pause right here. So the blue items are things that the Business Operations Committee has not yet seen, and however, they did receive these electronically about 2.5 weeks ago. And so now that the governor has come out with his proposal for 2022-23, we do have a couple of small changes. For example, the rate to mandated costs has changed. And then if we can cursor down a little farther. And then Mary Allen in her presentation mentioned two funding sources that were provided after the state budget was enacted in June, and that's the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant, and then some additional COVID funding for expanded learning opportunities for before and after school academic support and enrichment. And so we have the detail here as well. And then the allocation restoration plan in 2020-21, we learned that we may have to look at possible budget reductions in the out years if the pandemic and the wildfires impacted our property tax revenues greatly in the future. And so now, as the board knows, our financial outlook has improved somewhat, and we don't need to worry so much about budget reductions, but we do want to begin looking at restoring some of those things that we temporarily froze in the budget in 2021. And most importantly, our allocations to our special facilities funds, Fund 14, our deferred maintenance fund, and then Fund 40, our reserve for capital outlay. And so the Business Operations Committee reviewed this allocation restoration plan during their December 8th Business Committee meeting, and they approved it as included in these budget assumptions here, with the idea being that in those years in which we have a budgetary, a balanced budget or a budgetary deficit, then at the end of the year we would look at any surplus that we had left over as we were closing the books, and then have the board approve a transfer to Fund 14 or Fund 40 to build back up our reserves for facilities in that way. And then if we can cursor down a little bit farther. However, in years in which we have a budgetary surplus, we would begin to build back those items kind of above the line, so to speak. It's just part of the regular budget, as they were before the pandemic in 2019-20. We'll keep going. And then the governor has included in his state budget for 22-23 the Universal Transitional Kinder program and funding. And so at this moment in time, being a basic aid district, we're not going to realize some of the funding that our revenue sharing partners are. We're working to change that at the legislative level. But this just includes a note, which is that staff is currently working on a plan for universal TK for the out years, and we'll be meeting with other county representatives as well to have these discussions. And then the board is also aware that beginning in 22-23, we have a universal meals program. So in the state of California, I believe is the first state to offer free meals for any student that requests it. And so that's going to realize more revenue for us by virtue of federal and state reimbursements. And so likely we'll be able to begin reducing the contribution to food services. But for now, I'm holding it steady in next year's budget until I've had the opportunity to analyze it a little further. And I believe that would conclude the highlights that I wanted to review with the board this evening.
Excuse me. Is there any public comment or online public comment on this agenda item?
There is no public comment.
Thank you. Trustees, do you have any questions about this agenda item? No?
Well, I think that I'm not sure if this is the right time to ask this or not, but it's, I'm just thinking about the Universal Meals Program. So if that is, it sounds like if it pans out the way it is we might be serving more children, more students. Is that correct?
Correct.
So would you say that the $525,000 that's here right now, is that if we need additional staffing, would that be part of that right there, the 525? Yes.
Yes, in fact, we are adding an additional food services assistant this year. And so, however, we will be able to manage the increase that we're expecting in meals with the labor that we have with the addition of 3 hours of food service assistant one time. And so to a certain extent, we'll be able to accommodate that without having to increase our labor costs, but yet bringing in some more revenue. So,
right.
yeah.
Okay. So that was my next piece, is because we'd be receiving more revenue in for our food program then as well. So
yes.
We would need to look at that, how that all balances out. Yeah.
Yes, and so Angela Baxter and I, the food services director, will be reviewing all of that and determining if we need to add some additional labor hours next year as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And Andy, I believe I do know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it just to clarify in my mind. On the Universal Transitional Kindergarten, as a community-funded district, there's no dollars that come to us from a state level to implement that program.
We will have access to some planning grant funding, but at this moment in time, unless something has changed currently, there's no new funding for personnel for basic aid districts.
Okay.
But I'm following that pretty closely, and we'll give the board an update.
Great. Thank you.
In line with the Universal TK, do you know if groups such as SF Squared are looking at possibly lobbying for basic aid districts to get some sort of funding, or are there any other groups? I'm guessing that CSBA isn't going to take that up, but maybe SF Squared or something.
I did recently see some lobbying information from SF Squared in my email, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was thinking the same thing just because the Legislative Action Day is coming up as well. There's CSBA, right, right. Have you seen anything from CSBA regarding this?
I haven't. I can certainly look.
Oh, that's, I don't want to put anything else. We can look. I mean, I can certainly look. I just wanted to, because if this could be an opportunity for us to be able to help with that as well. If we, because we have that opportunity in mid-March, I believe is when it is.
Mid-March is both the Legislative Action Day and SF Squared meeting.
Right. Thank you, Andy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you as always. Appreciate it. Love all the little highlights and the color coding. It's super helpful. Okay, on to 13B, review and consider approval of contracts over $25,000. Before we get started on this item, we'll need to, staff has requested that we remove the contract for PBK from the list of contracts over $25,000 at this time. And I would like to call on Mrs. Andy Stubbs to go forward, please.
Thank you. And our first contract this evening would be with Bay City Boiler for some equipment to replace the boiler here at Vintage Hall. It's at least 20 years old. We've had some real problems with it, and we're fortunate in that we can use some ESSER 2 funds to replace that equipment because it is tied with the HVAC system and so forth. And so we also sought a couple of competitive quotes, and the most competitive price was for the $60,815 that you see there. The next contract would be with Consolidated Networks Corporation, and that would be for some additional security cameras, and we would use Measure B, Measure C bond proceeds to cover those costs, and we found that implementing security cameras across the district has actually been really effective in helping us to manage some loss and to help with security and so forth. The third would be the PBK that I'm requesting that the board pull for this evening. Next would be a replacement contract with Mid-Valley IT. The board approved a contract during the December board meeting with Mid-Valley IT for them to help us recruit and hire a general technician to support with our technology needs. However, they haven't been successful in that endeavor, and so this replacement contract provides for some remote help desk support instead. And in fact, this would be at a lesser cost compared with the contract that the board approved in December. And then finally, we have an extended contract with EP Behavioral Consulting. And this would be for some behavioral support for one or more students in the district. And it actually, compared with what the extension that the board approved in December, it actually just represents an $11,000 increase compared with that. And that will carry us through to the end of the year for those services. And so with that, I would ask the board to approve the contracts over $25,000.
Thank you. Is there any public comment or online public comment on this agenda item?
There is no public comment.
Thank you. Trustees, do you have any questions about this item?
Just a clarify on the EP Behavioral Consulting. We've already approved the one contract. This is just an updated number, so it's really not that full. We're not double counting. I mean,
Correct. Yeah, just improving the extension to the end of the year with an increased cost.
Thank you. I want to know, did anybody else, when they were at Bay City Boiler, kept thinking Bay City Rollers and then started singing this Bay City Roller songs? So I just had to throw that in there because I was like, oh my God, that song was stuck in my head all night. Anyway, okay, sorry about that. Little moment of levity. Let's see. Is there a motion to approve the contracts over 25,000 as presented, as amended? Excuse me.
I'll make a motion to approve the contracts over 25,000, excluding the PBK contract.
Thank you. Macy, would you like to cast a preferential vote?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. It's a little Motown thing in there, huh? As our most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson, will you perform a roll call vote?
Trustee Simon.
Aye.
Trustee Haug.
Aye.
Trustee Kerr.
Aye.
Trustee Ogeen.
Aye.
President Pelosi.
Aye. Motion carried. It's getting late, right? Okay. Item 14A is future agenda items. You can take a look at the list there for our March 10th, actually, 2022 regular board meeting. Do the trustees have subjects for future agenda items at this point?
No, I'm fine. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. 15A is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson, perform a roll call vote, please.
Macy, would you like to make a preferential vote?
I'll make a motion.
Trustee Simon.
Aye.
Trustee Haug.
Aye.
Trustee Kerr.
Aye.
Trustee Ogeen.
Aye.
President Pelosi.
Aye. Motion carry. Meeting